Julia. So yes, as pre-advertised, this is absolutely a seed saving demo. I am going to preface this and give myself a little leeway by saying I'm a little more scattered than normal. This is the first week of first full week of classes, and chaos reigns. So I do apologize in advance for any of that bleeds into this talk. I'm going to blame my job for once again getting in the way of gardening.
And full moon and Mercury.
I mean, it's just so much, isn't it? They need it right now. It's a lot. It's a lot. But we're moving into one of my favorite topics. I do love saving seed. I will say of the areas of horticulture that I love, there's many plant propagation. Making more plants is hands down my favorite. I just love the ways and means plants have come up with to make more of themselves. It's truly fascinating to me and a constant source of interest and entertainment, right? So seeds are, of course, the only form of sexual reproduction with plants. So that's the only way you can get truly new stuff, right? All other forms of plant propagation are asexual, so you're not getting genetic diversity. If you're doing cuttings, if you're doing grafting, if you're doing divisions, you're just getting an exact replica every time of the same plant, right? In order to get new or exciting stuff, you got to do this part, right? And traditionally, this is how we have done it after generation and generation. If you're trying to do something hard like a tree, golly, you got to hope your grandkids take on that project, right? Because seed saving and seed storing is a long-term goal sometimes. So obviously there are a lot of reasons people might save seeds. One would be to conserve atypical varieties, right? If you have a really bizarre sunflower that appears in your garden and you want to try and get more of that one, well, you got to know how to carry those genetics forward in time, right? Which is, again, one of the amazing ways that plants have invented to get themselves through time and space. I usually in classes explain a seed as a baby plant inside of a box with its lunch, right? They have taken a tiny baby plant, their little baby, and they put it into this sealed box, and then they put an endosperm in there, which is its lunch. So as soon as it pops out, it's got that little food going, and before it can get its photosynthetic activities happening, it's got that food source right there. And plants can send their seeds across tens of thousands of years. I mean, at this point, I think the record holder is this little campion plant that appeared from a receding glacier and was like in a squirrel nest. It was like 20,000 years old, right? So that's just amazing that you can take your baby and be like, all right, good luck. Wherever it is you appear in the world again, we really hope it's okay. And sure enough, they came out. There's some other really crazy ones. Lotus is another real famous one, you know, that gets buried under the pyramids and somebody pops one out and 8,000 years later, little baby plant still in that box with its lunch, ready to go. So that is ultimately what we're trying to get to, right? Is that little sealed baby that has the genetics you want so that you can make more of that particular thing, right? So we have a lot of really cool resources in our area just because we do have people that care about seeds that are going to come true to type and seeds that are going to carry on some of the traditions of our area. We have a couple of local seed producers. One of the big ones is So True Seed. For anybody who's not familiar with that seed company, they use as many local producers as they can, but that's really one of their main goals is to produce seeds that are open pollinated varieties. So diving into that particular topic, I know there can be a lot of confusion around some of the words that get used. So who has ever heard something referred to as an heirloom seed? Yeah. Okay. Who wants to even hazard a guess? Like what exactly that means?
Passed down through generations.
Sure, absolutely. Sometimes it's the seed that somebody's grandma brought from the old country, right? Like that's what that word can mean. Sometimes when it's used as a marketing term by a seed company, really what they mean is it is an open pollinated seed. Right? It could have been developed in 1920. It could have been developed in the 1950s. Really what it can mean is that if you have a yellow crookneck squash that's the mother and a yellow crookneck squash that's the father, and those two plants cross, their babies are going to come out with exactly the same babies. They're not going to be something totally new and different, right? Yeah.
Heirlooms? Yeah. Oh, okay. That's, never mind.
She got lost for a second.
Oh, sure. So, and it can be confusing because we use those terms now interchangeably, and they tend to be a lot of crossover between like a marketing term and a genuine scientific reference to what is happening to your seeds, right? So open pollinated is sort of the more strict horticultural definition of something that if I save seed from this, it is going to come true to type. A lot of times, heirloom is the more pretty marketing term they use to mean the same thing. It can mean both things. It can mean open pollinated and it can mean it came from the old country. It doesn't have to mean both of those things, right? If something is a hybrid variety, that means that the mother and the father were two different plants. So just as an example, if I have a German red tomato and a Mr. Stripey, and I cross those two plants and what I get is a German Stripey, that's an F1 generation. If I save seeds from that F1 generation, those babies are gonna be who knows what. Because the genetics are still like scattered. In order to get a German Stripey, I will always have to use a Mr. Stripey and a German, right? Like you always have to have those two parents. So if you see something and you're ordering from a Johnny's or any seed company that doesn't specialize in open pollinated, if it says F1 hybrid generation, that means that if you save seed from those plants, you're experimenting. You're saying, I'm gonna get whatever I get, right? I'm not really sure what this is gonna be, but it's sure not gonna come out every time as a Mr. Stripey or German Stripey. Yeah.
Heirloom, I have to say, is associated with non-GMO.
So not necessarily, right? So somebody could have created a genetically modified organism that was in the 1950s. If that is stabilized and that seed is going to come out true to type, they can start to say heirloom as a marketing term, right? Like again, it's, this is why I bring this up because it can be a little convoluted, right? Like what exactly they're referring to when they're saying those things, right? Again, I think the most important terms to focus in on are open pollinated versus hybrid. Open pollinated means you can save seed from it and get the same plant out of those seeds as the parents were. If it's not open pollinated and it's hybrid, it means you're taking your best guess as to what it's gonna be, which is how we get new varieties, right? Some people do that on purpose. Some plants, they won't come true to type. Like apples are real famous for being a plant that crosses genetics, kind of like humans, right? So if you save seed from a Red Delicious apple, even if it was a Red Delicious mom and dad, those seeds are gonna come out like, who knows what they're gonna be, right? And then you grow those plants up and then you're like, I wonder if any of these apples are any good. Always. So anytime you want an apple, there's some other plants that are like this that's true to type, you have to do grafting. You have to do cuttings. Otherwise, you can't get the same type of seed every time from an apple seed. Just not possible. Yeah.
So these seed companies are, they're making the marketing work with the words.
Well, sure. I mean, that's their job, right? Like, that's what they're trying to do. So you do have to kind of pay attention as much as possible. And I don't think anybody's trying to scam anybody here, man. But like,
Working out.
how do you get that term in ways? So if you say open pollinated in general, sometimes nobody knows in it. What are you talking about? Nobody knows what that word means. But if you say heirloom, that is a more socialized word that people are like, oh yeah, that means a plant that if I save it, it's going to be the same plant over and over.
And where's the so true seed?
They're in Asheville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right off the.
Yeah. Yeah, just right in Asheville.
SOW.
Okay, thank you.
Like I'm sowing seeds. Yeah.
So I am confused. If
Sure.
I have an heirloom open pollinated tomato plant,
Yep.
but I also have something else growing next to it, are the tomatoes off of here? Are their seeds going to be, or are they going to?
So that's a great question, and we're gonna get a little more into
okay.
that when we get to
Okay.
like saving seeds in terms of not, so like, let's say I do, just to start into it a little bit, let's say, again, I'll use my example, I have my yellow crookneck squash here, right? If for some reason I have this yellow crookneck squash planted right next to a, I don't know, let's just say a red speckled squash. If that red speckled squash is the thing that pollinates this, then these seeds aren't gonna turn out like, because now we've got genetic crossing. Again, the big thing is that if you have a mother and father that are the same in open pollinated plants, then you get babies that are the same, right? You still can get genetic diversity, right? So if you wanna save seed and have them come true to type, there's some other rules that have to do with like pollination distances, how do you time it so that you don't get pollination that crosses things? Because some people want to do that on purpose. They're like, I wonder what's going to happen if I cross this with this. And then again, that's how we get new varieties, right? That's how that's done. Yeah.
Is that what happens when you have like a banana pepper plant and then some very hot peppers around and a bumblebee carries pollen over and all of a sudden the banana is very, very hot?
No,
Different.
because the seed or the fruit that plant is making is already genetically predetermined, right? There's no way that can happen. However, the seeds you save from that banana pepper, if they were pollinated by one of the flowers of the habanero, then yeah, maybe you just created a spicy banana. But no, like the fruit coming from that
Fresh
plant,
one, okay.
already predetermined. Genetics are already in that seed, baby plant's already in the box,
Okay,
right?
gotcha.
It's only the next box that can give you something new. Yeah.
So it's possible the seed manufacturer, the seed seller had one,
Sure, maybe.
okay.
Yeah.
So they weren't
Or-
true bananas when we bought them.
There is something called a sport, is what we call them in horticulture, right? Which is the genetic randomness of nature,
Okay.
right?
Gotcha.
It means that that one plant, for whatever reason, something went brrrr and did something different, right? There's some recessive gene that came forward. Honestly, like nursery people love sports, right? If you got 1,000 little cuttings of maples and they're all supposed to look alike, but then you have this one that has some sort of bizarre color or leaf shape, you're like, oh my gosh, and then you start taking cuttings of it, and then you start making more of it, and then suddenly you get to name it, and you get to patent it, you know? So sports is kind of its own thing, and you can't predict those. Those are, so maybe you have a banana pepper that had a recessive spicy gene that popped out, because genetics is a crazy world, right? Yeah, back here.
Couldn't that also have something to do with soil acidity as well?
A little bit. I mean, if we're talking about like pepper spiciness, again, that's mostly predetermined in how much of that capsicum oil they're going to produce. That's, I mean, like soil fertility is maybe going to have something to do with how much they're capable of putting into it. Like if they're healthy, they're going to be able to make more capsicum oil, but not really, right? Pepper is spicy or not spicy unless, again, something went wrong, the seeds did something strange and they popped out genetically different than they should have been. Or there was a mistake and the seed company gave you the wrong seed, because it does happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially with peppers.
Especially with peppers, it's hard. It's really hard to keep track of them. Yeah.
Capsicum or
Capsicum,
spicy
I don't have a whiteboard.
That's
That's what makes pepper spicy. Yeah. As far as science can tell, mostly it has to do with stopping things that they don't want to eat their seeds from eating their seeds, right? Birds don't taste spicy, and so birds will happily eat pepper seeds and then poop them somewhere, whereas they don't want things that can taste things that might chew them all the way up. And so they put this spicy thing on there to deter, it's like a pest repellent. It's their own pest deterrent. Yeah, that's the point of that spiciness. And we humans, as per usual, are like, nature, please give me this thing that is gonna make me like snot and vomit. It's so hot that I'm gonna put it into my face. Humans are so weird. We are the weirdest species. Yeah.
So is that a good plant to put around as like when you're planting your gardens and stuff, are peppers something to put around as like
A pest deterrent? No, I wouldn't say like in the moment. If I was doing pest deterrents, I would use more things that are actively aromatic, like marigolds and fennel and alyssum and all these other things that smell right then. Because again, what the pepper's trying to do is get certain things and not eat its seeds. But the rest of us can't tell. If you walk up to a pepper plant, you can't tell just by standing near it that it's hot. I mean, like even when you're cutting up peppers, until you touch the seeds, like the flesh is not spicy,
right, but
right? It's just those seeds that make it spicy. So no, not really.
okay.
You can make your own pest repellent out of spicy pepper
Right.
seeds, right? You're basically making pepper spray for nature. And yeah, you can do that. Anyway, okay,
Sorry.
back on track. No, it's okay. I will talk about literally anything related to plants because I love it all. All right, so let's see. Where am I? Sorry, I like I said, my brain's a little scattered right now. Let's go ahead and jump into isolation distances. So there are a few ways to make sure a seed does not get cross-pollinated. This remains one of my favorite and one of the books on seed saving. She goes into a lot of detail about how far apart certain plants need to be to not cross-pollinate.
We have
right?
that book in the library.
It's a great book. I feel like y'all even have like the newer variety. Her name is Susan Ashworth. There are plenty of books out there on seed saving, so don't feel like you have to go for this one. This is just one of my personal favorites. It's well written, there's a lot of information. So just as a for instance, if you want to save corn seed, corn is wind pollinated, not primarily insect pollinated. If you have like a red corn and a white corn and you don't want those to cross pollinate, they need to be like 2 miles apart, right? You can't have them in the same garden. That is not how that's going to work isolation distance wise, right? If you want to try to save 2 types of corn in a small garden, what you have to do is isolate them in time, right? So I'm going to plant my red one early. I'm going to let it come up. I'm going to let its tassels come out. I'm going to let pollination happen. And then what I have to do is either cut off those tassels or cover them with a bag or something to stop pollination from happening. And then I can have the white corn coming up, with always the understanding that stuff might get through because nature is nature. Nature's always trying to find a way, right? Some of them, they can be a little closer together, but again, I'm not going to go into the detail of every single plant because I couldn't possibly, right? There's so many out there and there's so much reading. If you're new to seed saving, just like anything else, pick one you want to save seed from and just start there. Don't be overwhelmed by the massive world that is botanical seed saving, right? Because there you can get pretty deep into the weeds and some are way harder than others, right? So as a for instance, again, kales, cabbages, Brussels sprouts, any of those things in that brassica family, there's something called a biennial, meaning they only flower every 2nd year. So in order to get seed from a kale plant, you gotta start it 1 year, grow it all the way through the winter and keep it alive and disease-free. Then it's gotta start growing the next season and it'll then flower the 2nd fall that you have it growing, right? So you gotta make it all the way through to saving seed and not letting it cross-pollinate with a million other things that are related to that in the wild. That we're talking advanced level over there, right? Nice, fun level, squash. Squash is a nice, fun intro level, right? So these in particular, what I would do if I didn't want these to cross with each other, say I want to grow patty pans right next to my crooknecks and I want to try and come true to type, what I might do is I might even hand pollinate with these, which is real easy, and then I'll take the anther part off. It's like you can't be pollinated anymore. You can't get any other seed, right? Or I've seen people like seal the blossoms with a rubber band. So like a bee can't get in there anymore, right?
Chastity belt.
Yeah, yes it is. It's a squash chastity belt. Yeah. And the creative ways. You are. That's exactly what you're doing. You're controlling the squash. Great way to start, right? Again, and the flowers of a squash look like the flower they show you in biology class. Right? It's like the female flowers and the male flowers are different. You can look right at them. They're right there next to each other. It's like, oh, look, there's the male one, there's a female one. But take the male part, touch it to the female part, and then I'm either going to seal the flower or I'm going to pull the pollinating parts off so it can no longer be pollinated. Boom, done. Right? Yay. Okay, so the next part I will say about all these is it's important to remember that when you're saving seed, I don't know if y'all would notice, but like, as a person who gardens for food, I would not harvest this squash anymore for food, right? It's so hard. Like at this point, it might as well, I don't know, like it's no longer something, yes, our nice friend here tried to cut this open and it was really an adventure. You have to leave things longer for seed than you would when you're gonna eat it, right? When you harvest them to eat, the seeds are barely there. You have to wait for a long time until they're fully ready. And then you're gonna get all these guys out of it, right? And at this point, part of how I can tell that a seed is ready is that I can't pierce it with my thumbnail, right? Box is sealed. There's no longer soft in there. That embryo is fully developed. It's nice and plump. I'll leave some of these out, but like I can feel that this one in particular did not make. There's no embryo in there. It's totally flat. There's no baby plant inside of that one right there. as opposed to that one right there, which is plump. I can feel the baby in there. I can feel its little lunch. It's ready to go. Yeah.
So are you leaving it inside there, or are you scooping out and then letting it dry?
I usually scoop them out as quickly as I can after I get them out of the garden. I harvested this one out of my garden this morning.
Okay.
I leave them in the garden as long as I possibly can.
Okay.
If I'm gonna take from seed,
Right.
Bearing in mind that when you're choosing which fruit to save for seed, you are always on some level selecting for something. So if, for instance, you always are like, I'm gonna pick the first squash that is the healthiest, you are always selecting for squash that fruit earlier. Because you're always choosing the squash that came out first. So on some level, you're sort of nudging over time towards the squash that is the early producer. Whereas if you wait always to the very end, you're kind of selecting over time for a squash that produces later in the season. Obviously, there's reasons people would do that, right? We're always going for that. Are we choosing the biggest? Are we choosing the juiciest? Are we choosing the tastiest? Like, what exactly are we selecting for? And if you save seed from a region over and over, which is one of the big ones I think of, like I really, really, really like cantaloupe. Cantaloupe struggles in our climate. It's originally native to like parts of Africa. You know, commercially in the US, they grow it in places like Utah. Our humidity is not conducive to cantaloupes. But I have some cantaloupe I've been saving now for like 10 years. They produce decent cantaloupes because over and over and over I have picked the healthiest, nicest looking cantaloupe, left it in my garden, not eaten it, and then saved seed from that plant. So slowly but surely I'm selecting for a cantaloupe that is capable of handling our humid, long, obnoxious southern summers, right? As opposed to a dry desert climate, which is what they really want and originally evolved in. Does that all make sense? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Let's see.
So kale is one of the ones that will biennial?
Biennial.
So like my sorrel,
Yes. Yeah.
that I got seeds from.
Awesome.
Carrots, too.
That's very exciting. And it's something like that, as long as it's something that you don't really care if it has some wild cousins, you don't have to really care that there's other types in a garden or anything, right? Almost all of us plant multiple types of squash, or we have multiple types of kale, or we also have cabbage, and then those are gonna cross-pollinate willy-nilly, right? And again, unless you're doing something to stop that, they're gonna cross-pollinate, and then you get new varieties, and then you're an experimenter, which is also fun. This is another example I just brought in of like having to wait, right? This is a fennel from right outside the door here. These are not ready, these are ready, right? This flower that came out later, when I try and squeeze them with my finger, it just crushes in my thumbnail, right? Whereas one of these, now that they're fully dried out, I can't pierce that with my thumbnail anymore. That has become solid and will no longer break under my thumbnail. So it can be on the exact same plant. It's like, well, I gotta come out to my fennel and I gotta pull these guys off and make sure that I get all of them off, but I gotta leave this on the plant. Because as of right now, if this were still on the plant's plumbing is still sending nutrition up here. This embryo is still developing, right? This one, the plumbing has been shut off. Everything's done, we're not sending any more energy out there, so this now can be effectively saved for all sorts of, or whatever purposes you might have, right? I mean, sometimes it might be that that's what you're eating.
Can you back up and clarify that for other things, like make it explicit, like how to wait for the seed to be ready to be saved?
So with something like this, it's very visual, right? It's like I can see the fennel seed. It can be a little harder with these because you obviously can't see inside what is going on. And I have definitely done this before. I mean, just this year, I had some pretty great acorn squashes, and I was really ready to eat them, but I thought they were ready enough to eat and save seed from it. None of those seeds were ready. Like once I actually cut it in half and took all the seeds out, all of them were soft and kind of flat. It's like, nah, well, I missed the target on that one, right? I kind of feel the same about this cucumber I took out of my garden this morning. This is not ready, right? It looks pretty close. I mean, this is definitely a cucumber I'm not gonna eat anymore. But is it seed saving ready? Clearly not. I mean, they kind of came off the same plant and
Juice it.
I can get it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, same thing with this one. It looks like maybe a few of them are ready. but no, not really. Because even these I can crush with my thumbnail.
So they're too mushy.
They're too mushy. They're not ready. And again, I'm happy, like, once we're all standing up and moving around, I'll let you guys go, come in all the touch and test the examination area. But some of it with the ones you can't see is kind of guesswork, right? It's like, oh, I tried this one. Well, it's not ready yet, so I'm not gonna pick, I gotta leave the rest of them longer. And sometimes, especially with some of these big leaved things that struggle with the funguses in our area, sometimes you can't get there, right? It's not your fault. If they got powdery mildew is already hammering them too hard, and they're just no longer photosynthesizing enough to ripen a seed. That is something that happens, right? Again, it's not your fault. It's a humid summer, right? Nothing you can do. That's such as life. It's what happens. Yeah. Okay. Some of them, again, like a sunflower, these are pretty easy to tell, right? Same idea. I mean, again, this is about half of one because the goldfinches are just going bananas for these in my garden right now. If you come in and peel out your sunflower seeds, they're actually like right next to each other. One that's not ready, because see my thumbnail pierced right through it. Thumbnail's a pretty good judge. But then there's one right next to it that I can't get my thumbnail through, right? Because it's good and hard. That one is fully sealed up. I can't get this one open anymore. That's ready for storage, right? I had some questions about winnowing. Is anybody familiar with what that means to do? Okay.
Seed from the chaff?
Seed from the chaff, yeah. We, in our horticulture garden, we did this is the closest I could get to a seed you might winnow. We did a cover crop bed with crimson clover. Crimson clover is actually pretty expensive in terms of cover crop seed, so we wanted to save as much seed as we possibly could. So this is the seed that we got off of that clover plant, right? And again, this will be easier once y'all can come closer. This is seed with its like transportation system still attached, right? Because all these seeds have some way to get the wind to catch them or to attach to a dog's tail or whatever it is they're going to use to make themselves go through the world. If I were wanting to sell this seed or store it long term, I would need to take all of this off. Usually you're going to put it through some sort of system that'll like smear all this off because the actual seed is sort of inside of here. It is real tiny. Once you've done that, like mixed it up a little bit, you need some sort of like airflow to come across, and then you like toss it into the air, and the airflow will blow the lightweight chaff you don't want and leave behind the heavy seed. I've seen people do it all sorts of ways. You can do it in front of your own face and blow on it. Seen that one? You can set up a wee fan. Used to, they would sit out when it's windy, and you sit there and toss the seed in the air, and then slowly but surely the chaff blows away, and you're left with just nothing but seed. On a personal level, what I will say is I have never winnowed anything in my life. I have no need to do that because I am not a commercial seed grower, so I have no intention of selling this. And two, I'm not usually saving it long term. I don't need to prep it to sit in a freezer for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I'm using it pretty much the next year. So all I need to do is make it to next season, maybe the season after that. So for what it's worth, while that step can be important, or certainly if you're going to eat it, you got to get that stuff off there and you're going to winnow something. But again, as somebody who's been doing this for a fairly long time and all different times, never once have I actually done that in real life, right? Because I just don't need to. It's unnecessary. Which brings me to one of my other things I'm going to say. If you are getting into seed saving and you go out there onto the internet, as per usual, will offer you some very high-tech equipment, right? Like all these little mesh tiers that get smaller and smaller, and there's all these things. And if you're on a farm, they have these cool machines that like separate stuff and do this and that. This is what I use. And some paper towels, right? I have a busy life and a full-time job. I do not have time to do all of that, right? That is not what I'm doing at this level. I want to save seed for fun, and I kind of want to save things that maybe I've crossed and I think are cool, right? Colanders. Awesome. They're so useful, right? If I'm going to be doing a squash like this, what I probably would have done is I'll take this whole slimy mess out, drop it into my colander, and then in my sink with water running, I'll run my hands around until most of the slime is off of them. Then I'll take them out and I'll spread them on a paper towel or something else really flat. You got to move them every day or they'll stick to the paper towel and never come off again. And then as soon as they are fully dry, which again, you can get a humidity tester and you can test them right down to like exactly what their moisture content is. I never do that. Not once. Like after, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 days, and if again, I can't pierce it with my thumb, as far as I'm concerned, that's as good as I need to do. Because that is enough for me to make it between now and next season. And again, I'm not a commercial grower. So I don't need to be doing some of those things. I mean, some of those seed companies are doing like germination tests as well with some of the thing. They're gonna be doing variety tests. So they're pulling a random sample and making sure that it's what's, but I don't do that either. It's like, it's the end of the season, I'm tired. You're done, you're dry, we're putting you into a glass jar and we're putting you in the freezer and trying to remember to label it. It's really important because I always think I'm gonna remember and I never do. Yeah, maybe.
So you said glass jar.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the biggest things that will ruin seeds is moisture, right? Like once you get them dried down to a certain content, you need to try to not let them get re-moisturized. So the reason you generally want them in glass is the best place to store seeds is in a freezer. At a low temperature, that is what's gonna slow all that activity, that physiological activity in the seed down as far as it can go. Because again, there's a living organism in there. Technically, there's a baby plant in there. So you need it to slow down, and that's gonna be best in a freezer. But then if you have it in like paper or plastic, as soon as you pull it out of that freezer, immediately condensation happens. And you re-wet that seed, right? So if you're like, have a jar of beans, let's say, and you pull it out of in your glass container, generally what I'll do is let it sit there for about 24 hours so that it equilibrates with the room temperature. Then I open the jar so that it's not gonna suck moisture in there into my nice dry seeds, right? Then I can take out whatever I wanted for that day or however much I need for that season, reseal it and put it back into the freezer. Stainless steel also works, but I don't have stainless steel containers, but I do have a lot of mason jars.
So then why do we buy all of our seeds in little paper envelopes?
Because it's cheaper. I can assure you though,
But
the
they don't
seed
feel
company is
moist.
not storing them in that.
Yeah.
The seed company is storing them in stainless steel containers or glass or something else. Is anybody familiar with Svalbard? The big doomsday vault?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what they're doing, again, in a place that's already frozen. That's the whole concept of that thing, is you have to send in seeds that are in, again, metal boxes, and then they get put in this frozen environment. So, but that's really what it comes down to, is like, they're not gonna sell you a glass jar of seeds because it's expensive and it takes up too much space.
But they don't feel moist or anything, they feel super dry.
Well, so they're already dried down, right? It's like they're already room temp seeds. That's when they get packaged. And then, I mean, if like So True Seed, the Seed Savers Exchange, which is another great seed company, I fill out seed donation forms for them every year and they send us free seed because after year 2, John, of them being in that paper thing, their germination rate starts to plummet, right? Onions and lettuce, particularly notorious of not making it past a year, right? So if they've pulled them out of cold storage, put them into these paper containers, the clock is now ticking, right? They're out here in the moisture, who knows what. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I've definitely ruined some seeds because I've got them out there in my hot little hand out in the field, and I dump what I want, but then I think I'm gonna put it back, and then the package gets dirty and wet, and then after that, the next time I try to use those seeds, it's a total bust, because they just rotted in the package. Some will last a long time no matter what you do though, right? Like bean seeds, pumpkin seeds, that kind of thing, they can make it for a while with some pretty heavy abuse, right? They're just like sitting on the counter somewhere, and you're like, yeah, let's see if those germinate. Sure enough, yeah.
I think I took Julia's step last year. Just throw it under the porch or throw it in the
Yeah.
porch and in a paper bag and all of a sudden, oh, it's working.
Look, they worked. Yeah, I mean, again, seeds have been doing this. Seeds don't put themselves into a freezer other than wintertime. I mean, like, they're out there doing their thing. We're just trying to trick them into lasting as long as possible, right? So, some are easier to do that with. Some you really gotta work at it, right? Again, pick the one thing you like, jump in there, learn about it, and then go from there. Don't pick every plant you've ever loved, because that is so overwhelming to think about, right? Start with 1, bump up to 3, move on from there and see if you enjoy doing this, because gosh, there's nothing worse than feeling really overwhelmed, right? I don't know about y'all, but I don't like that feeling.
Experiments fail.
Yeah, experiments fail, like, golly, I don't even want to do this anymore. I mean, like, all gardening can get to that point a little bit. I don't know about y'all, but I am really tired of weed eating and weeding. It's mid-August, it's really hot outside, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't even care. I don't even care if my garden is weedy because I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah, I'm over it. Like if you made it this long, good on you, plant. After this, between now and first frost, I don't know, like Godspeed, you know, because you lost me as a tender. Anyway, let's see. I feel like that is about all I have for formal comments. Julia.
Will you talk just a little bit about how to make the seeds grow again, like for example, cold stratification?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that maybe I'll jump in by throwing out my 2 other favorite books I like. So if you want to get into maybe more complicated plant propagation, these are both really great. I've obviously been beating this one up for a long time. This one kind of just came into my world, but I like both of these. These go into detail on kind of like more native plants, more wildflowers, a little more atypical type stuff. But one of the things that is really common for our native wildflowers is what Julia's asking about, which is what do you have to do to a seed to make it open that box, right? Because some of those boxes are locked super tight. And I mean, just again as an example, like longleaf pine seeds have to go through fire to germinate. They have to be set on fire. Otherwise, nope, box is locked. Sorry, not coming out. Some seeds have to go through sulfuric acid, which is a stomach, right? If they don't go through sulfuric acid, if they're eaten by an animal, nope, not unlocking the box, right? Sorry. So 2 of the other really common ones are called scarification and stratification. Scarification is something that is going to damage the seed coat in such a way that water can get in there and start the little plant going. Sulfuric acid is actually considered a type of scarification, right? That it's damaged the seed coat in that intestinal tract enough that water can now penetrate the seed coat, baby plant is started. You can do that at home, even maybe not ones that require real heavy soaking in acid, but like if you've ever read a package of sweet pea seed or peas or even beets, it'll tell you to soak the seed for 24 hours overnight. That's kind of like low-grade scarification. We're trying to soften the seed coat before we put it in the ground to give it a better chance of germinating out there in the wild, right? Okra. Yeah, anything with those crazy hard seed coats, it's like you're giving it a jump start on being able to get water in there to make stuff do its thing, right? You also, if you want to take the time, you can sit there with a little file and do every single one. I actually did some of this for my grad student work and like 400 seeds. One little thing. I make my plant props too. Yeah, on sandpaper. Yeah, you can roll them across sandpaper. Anything that like nicks the seed coat to let water in. The other big one is stratification. So that is treating seeds to moist, cold treatment in order to get them to germinate. So the way I like to explain this one is to think about how most of our wildflower seeds happen in the nature, right? As of for examples, Rudbeckia, black-eyed Susans, all of our echinaceas, yarrows, that kind of thing, they're flowering right now and about to go to seed, right? If they were to drop their seed right now and those seeds germinate immediately and make a baby plant, we're going into wintertime. Those baby plants are just gonna get frozen, right? So what needs to happen is those seeds need to drop, not germinate, and then come up in the springtime. So what happens in that period of time, right, is winter time. Ah, sweet, here is some echinacea seed. Nice and hard. This will be another one we can do a little demo on how you find them in there. These actually, I sometimes wear gloves because they're sharp. Yeah, they're very pokey. They are, they're good at being pokey. So these little wildflower seeds like this, what needs to happen, there's the tiny little seed right there for anybody who can see it. You have to trick it into thinking it went through winter, right? So it can't just be cold, it has to also be wet. So for our seeds, when we want to do this in the program, what we do is we would take these seeds right now, if I'm not just going to plant them outside, because you also can just let it have winter time, right? And just stick it out there and let it be cold and wet all winter long. Which is why also you have to seed wildflowers in the fall. Like if you're going to wildflower seed in your yard, you can't do it midsummer or you just wasted a lot of wildflower seed. When we're trying to trick these, what we do in our program is we take these seeds, we're gonna wait until the birds stop real quick. It happens in this day and age. No, it's okay, it really does. We take Ziploc baggies, we take play sand that we get from Lowe's, you also can use peat moss or anything else you feel comfortable with, put it into a Ziploc baggie, get that moist, not sopping wet, but moist, And then I write the date it can come out of the fridge on the bag. Not the day I put it in there, because then I gotta do math later on and I don't wanna do math. So I go ahead and like, if it's echinacea seed, they generally benefit from at least a month. So if I put them in on January 1st, I write out that on February 1st, this can come out of the fridge. And then I leave it in the fridge, wet and cold, right? That is stratifying something. You just tricked that plant into thinking it went through winter. Now it's springtime, now it's safe to let my baby come out of its box.
And sand
Right.
is the only way,
No, you can use peat. You can use anything that basically you can get kind of damp.
but sand's right.
Yeah. And then from there, obviously you can't separate the sand and the seeds. I mean, I guess you could if you feel like using your time that way. What we do is we generally have germination trays as opposed to individual cell packs. You take that and spread it out real flat on the surface. And then as those come up, if you want, you can then divide them out once the babies germinate. Or if you're direct sowing out into your yard, just take that sand and toss it out there and then smooth it out in whatever area you want it to be smoothed out in, right? So surface sowing with a lot of these little babies is what you need to do. And it's mostly wildflowers and flowers you have to do this with. I don't know of any veggies off the top of my head you have to stratify. Yeah.
And you do this before the first frost, correct?
It's usually better for wildflowers to get the seed in, even if you've pre-stratified it yourself. Because a lot of times now, like flower farmers that rely on it, they're gonna self-stratify because our winters don't get as cold.
So you're doing it before and then putting it in the ground before the first frost, is what you're saying?
I feel like there's a multi-part answer to that question. If what I am doing is direct seeding, I would do it before the first frost. If I have teeny tiny babies I have germinated in some sort of greenhouse or indoors, I would absolutely not put them
In the ground?
in the ground. No, because again, I just made babies that are not ready.
Before the first frost. Before the
Before-
frost, you would do it after.
Like in springtime. Let's say I did it right now. I'm just like, I want to start some rudbeckia right now for whatever reason, right? So I've stratified them for a month. They come out of the fridge in November. I've done them in their seed trays. And if you're a nursery owner, you might do this because you want things that look pretty when you start selling it to a consumer.
And you have a
April
giant
1st.
greenhouse.
And you got a big greenhouse, right?
Right.
So I just got all these babies to come up in November. I am definitely not putting them outside.
Right.
Because I just got all these sweet little tender babies to come up, right?
But
So
I
no.
But I have 2 acres on a
Sure.
mountain, so I want to do it just,
You can
You,
either throw out seed that hasn't been stratified, or you can cold now, or
Yeah.
whenever, in November. Or you can cold stratify them in your refrigerator now and put them out in the spring.
in the springtime.
The seed, just
Yeah.
cast the
After the frost.
stratified seed.
And if you want to do seedlings, that you can kind of do anytime starting in the spring, right? So let's say again, you want big plants in the springtime. You stratify now, you grow them as babies all the way through the winter, and then you're ready to put out seedlings that are this big in like April or May, right? If what I want to do is put out babies in midsummer, I mean, like if you're tricking them, you can do that anytime you want. If you have the controlled growing environments in which to do that. If you're trying to work with nature, you gotta again do like Julia's saying, you either gotta direct seed right now, or you gotta direct seed in spring and then kind of hope for the best that spring gets cold enough. That's why you generally have better germination with direct seeding wildflowers in the fall versus the spring, right? But you really can't do it midsummer. Again, that's a waste of wildflower seed if you direct seed them midsummer, unless they're zinnias. Seed zinnias anytime you want. Yeah. You can do it midwinter and then it's gonna roll around to the worm season, like, oh, awesome, yeah. Yes.
I have some specialty pastel zinnias and I've got them bagged in organza bags. Will that that'll keep the birds away, but will it prevent any cross-pollination?
It should, because zinnias are insect pollinated.
Okay.
Right, so those little baggies you tie over are basically a mini exclusion tent that's keeping insects off of them. Yeah. Big seed saving companies, you can look up photos of this, they have big tents.
Yeah.
You know, they're like half a room size where they're doing exactly that. It's like they've got a group of zinnias, they put this big exclusion tent over it, and what they're trying to do is keep insects out of there so that they'll only pollinate within that tent. And half the time they're hand pollinating, right? They're going in there and dusting it with something and making sure they get pollinated.
And another question, they say when you want to like create a new zinnia breed,
Sure.
that you kind of take a little paintbrush to the yellow parts and then you tuck it kind of under the bottom. Is there something that looks?
Does anybody have a zinnia?
Yeah, I did.
Awesome, of course you do. Excellent. Yeah, so what I'll say is Nadine find hers is zinnias and sunflowers both are compound flowers, right? So like a sunflower looks like one flower, but really it's a bunch of tiny flowers. It just happens to have ones that make petals on the edges, but that's why there's so many seeds. Awesome. All right, so I know this might be hard to see. Let's see if I can find one that still has petals.
I don't think I have.
Let's see, I even have some in my office that I picked just for looking at.
Did anybody else bring zinnias?
So at the base, you can almost see that these are dried up petals, right? Can everybody see that those are like the remnants of petals? So at the base of each one of those petals, which is technically a whole flower, the individual petal is not one petal on a whole flower, that is where each of the seeds are. Again, I'm happy to show everybody this, but you see how there's a seed at the base of every one of those?
Does it matter where I take the little paintbrush and stick them on the bottom layer?
I mean, I think it probably depends on just how detailed you want to be and how successful and adamant you want to be about pollinating every single one. So, you know, a lot of times on zinnias, you can see those little, they almost look like little mini flowers at the base of the petals.
Yeah.
That's the actual pollinating structures, right? So what they're talking about is, yes, you got to take your paintbrush, get pollen off of the male portion of the flower at the top, but then the little like female portions are sort of around the petals themselves.
So just the bottom layer, you would put it around?
Yeah, and but again, like, how detailed you want to be is going to depend on just how many you're trying to produce, because you also could kind of roughly do it. It's like get some on your paintbrush and then sort of dust pollen around the edges, and nature's then going to do its thing, right? So, I mean, yes, you also could be one of those people that's going to like tweezer up every single petal, and like, because those people are out there, you know, happily breeding orchids or whatever it is they're doing with their time. But I mean, for all that there can be some crazy things on it, the internet and YouTube is an amazing resource for watching somebody actually do that, right? Like, obviously, I don't have everything I need to show you all a demo for every single one of these, but that sort of thing, I feel like it's fairly safe to Google video of somebody hand-pollinating zinnia. And then you will get a version of that you can follow along with, right? And it's gonna give you, like, actually where those structures are physiologically, yeah.
But what time of, in the summer do you do that test?
I mean, whenever you have zinnias that are ready to go,
So if
right?
you see that little indication.
It's time to go. The thing that you would really have to be careful of is them not having already been pollinated, right? Because as soon as those flowers come out, well, so like if you're being real strict, you would need to put your organza bags on before the flower opens. Because as soon as that flower opens, all those pollinators they're starting work at like 6 in the morning, right? As soon as they're dry enough to start buzzing their wings, they're out doing their job, right? So you need to have that on there before the flower opens. Then the flower's gonna open in the bag, you take the thing off, get your pollen from whatever, like if what you're trying to cross is a yellow and a purple just to see what happens, take the bag off the one that you want seed from, get your pollen from your yellow one, put it on your purple one, you gotta put the bag right back on. Because we can't let insects on it, right? Because they're really good at their job. Yeah, very diligent, very efficient. And they're out there doing it. Yeah.
There's a cold stratified milkweed seed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that is notoriously one that if you don't, you're gonna get like 15% germination. If you do, you're gonna start bumping up into the 70s. Yeah.
You do freezer or refrigerator?
I do fridge. Because freezer feels like it's slowing everything down too much, right? I don't want them at 30 degrees. What I want them at is like 45, 40, 45. Again, maybe a little warmer than the average fridge, but I don't want them freezing. Yeah.
And do you think wet paper towels is as good as sand, or you prefer sand?
I prefer sand because I feel like it covers their whole seed coat, right? As opposed to like just one side. And I find, at least I find they're a little less likely to germinate in the bag when they're in sand. When I put them on paper towels, I feel like half the time I open the paper towel and they're just germinated in there. The little radicals already coming out. I'm like, dang, I gotta get you in some soil real quick because you're using up your resources. You're eating your lunch without anything happening yet. And So yeah, and the other thing for me is most of the stuff I'm trying stratifying, I'm trying to do it fairly quickly. And like getting everything laid out on a paper towel takes me longer than taking a Ziploc bag, putting a cup of sand, dropping my seeds in, adding a little bit of water, shaking it up, and putting it in the fridge. It's also sealed. I can toss them in there. Whereas again, paper towels, I kind of gotta like, please don't spill.
Right.
Yeah, like don't get nudged. So I would say more practical purposes are why I might use Ziploc with sand or peat or again, whatever. Some people use just perlite. If you got it on hand, anything that can hold moisture but not be sopping wet and sit in a fridge. Yeah,
So the sand shouldn't be wet, it should just, it
damp.
can't be wet, damp.
Yeah, damp. Like if I put my fingers in it, it should feel wet, but it shouldn't be sloshing in there.
And just to recap again,
Yeah.
so if I have Rebecca dried up now,
Yeah,
and I can cut them, put the blooms in the seed, and then they'll be okay for March?
blooms in the seed.
So dead
Yeah,
head.
yeah, yeah. Like this. I've got this one in my hand. Yeah.
And then put it in the sand, and then just keep it till,
And when I would do that would depend on what I wanted to do with it. Like if I had this right this second, the reason I might stratify it right this second is if I want seedlings in springtime.
So you do have to time the stratification for when you want them
that's
to
what I was.
germinate.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you put it in to stratify, you can't just leave it in there for the next 4 or 5 months because what they'll do is germinate. And
So
then if
where am I
you,
putting the sand, where am I putting this baggie?
in the fridge.
refrigerator?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a
now-
fridge in the horticulture rooms completely full of seed. Like that is what we use that fridge for. I can barely fit my lunch in there anymore. Yeah. So
Okay.
if I don't want this to germinate yet, right? What I would do is leave it just like it is, right? Because again, I don't winnow or separate anything because I don't want to, right? You can take them out of this little seed head if you want. You can get it down to those individual seeds. And then if I don't want it to germinate yet, I'm gonna store it in the freezer dry,
Okay.
right? You also can put it in a fridge dry. It doesn't have to be in a freezer, just cold and dry is the best way to keep them stable, non-germinating. Then as soon as I have backtracked where I want that seed to germinate from, like say I want them to be germinating and turning into baby plants April 1st. Well, germination on echinacea generally takes about 2 weeks, so that means mid-March. Takes a month for them to stratify. I need to put them into cold stratification mid-February.
Okay.
So I put it on my calendar that I need to pull these out of storage, start stratifying them mid-February. They come out of the fridge, stratified, ready to open their box mid-March. Then the 1st of April is hopefully when I start to see babies. And then it starts being warm enough outside, hopefully 2 weeks after that, and they're this big for me to start putting them outside. So when and how I would actually start doing this to these seeds depends entirely on when and how I want to deal with them. Yeah, John.
So how are you watering these little babies?
Mist.
Yeah.
Gotta use mist, right? So the average sprayer head that's got like shower, full, whatever, the mist setting, actually pretty okay, right? Not always, especially if you've got like, I don't know, let's say you're doing poppies. Poppies need stratification. Their babies are the tiniest thing you've ever seen. Their seeds look like dust. It's ridiculous, right? Snapdragons are a little like this too, just teeny, teeny, tiny. Even that mist can be a little much. When we, like on a professional level, what we use is these 10-gallon per minute mist nozzles. You can get them at like specialty growing stores, and it makes the finest poof of mist you've ever seen, right? And it causes no pressure and no bouncing of soil.
And how do you keep that from getting clogged up?
Filters. Yeah, I mean, it comes with pre-filters in the little nozzle when they ship it to you, and then you gotta make sure those don't fall out every time you take it off the hose. It so clogs up. Well, you gotta get new ones. I mean, I would say that, you know, I was a flower farmer before I took over this job, and I had to buy those at least every 2 or 3 years. Because same, I would lose the filter, they get clogged up, or I dropped it because it's only like that big and I forgot to put it in my pocket and where's the nozzle? I don't know. I would buy them like 5 at a time, honestly, John, because they came cheaper shipping wise when I needed those. But yeah, you gotta do mist because otherwise they're gonna dry out real fast, these tiny babies. Yeah, I think right here is fit first.
I'm either really confused or really lazy because
I'm usually both.
I thought I could just take the cone, take that little head that you just had, just put it in a bag, put it in my freezer, and like the end of October or November, after, when it gets cold enough, just throw it in the ground.
You can. You absolutely
So why
can.
would you
Because
go
then
through all
winter
that other
stratifies it.
stuff?
If you want to control where you plant them, right? Like, say I want to be sure that I put all my rudbeckias in one place. Or let's say I'm a plant producer. Or let's say that I don't want to waste my time with seed that's not going to germinate, right? Then I have to stratify this on my own because I'm not trusting winter to do it.
You're just controlling.
It's control.
Okay.
Yeah, you absolutely can let nature do it. Yeah, I can absolutely take
way
these
too
just like they're
lazy to
about
do
to do on their
anything
own.
but what I've
Yeah,
done.
it's like, okay, I got these from my neighbor, right? I don't have any echinacea on my property. My neighbor just gave these to me just today. It is time. Welcome to seeding time for stratification in North Carolina, right? Like between now and like November 1st, I mean, you could maybe wait a minute because it's still August, it's kind of hot outside, and like you could just, I don't know, hoard them a little bit so a bird doesn't eat them or whatever. But yeah, by mid-October, November 1st, if I don't really care and I don't want to control for them, direct seed them.
Oh, okay.
Just put them out there.
Good.
Yeah, the only reason you would stratify something is so that you can see and watch it happen, right?
Okay.
I mean, somebody who's really, really feeling strongly about making sure that their wildflower seed works might do it because, again, our winters aren't always getting that cold.
Sure.
Like flower farmers here aren't doing tulip bulbs much anymore because tulips need a certain amount of cold to come up.
Yeah.
And so unless you, again, pre-treat them in a freezer, sometimes they'll come up and their stems are only that long. And so some of it might be that, but yeah, if you want to be lazy, just put them out in the field. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've been the last few years winter sowing.
Oh,
So
yeah.
With the warmer winters, do you think this is going to be less successful?
I mean, it's hard to say because again, sometimes we have -5, right? It's like it's so fluctuating. What you can do to make that more successful is choose a microclimate, right? So if you're winter sowing and you have a corner of your garage that is north facing, put them over there, right? Because then it's colder, it's wetter, it gets less sun, and so you're putting it in a place that gets colder than the south-facing corner that is on concrete in front of your garage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Microclimates go a huge way in our climate in particular, right? It's like one side of the house is a different climate than this side. Like a fig tree's growing on that side and moss is growing on this side. We live in one of those places. Yeah, Julia.
I'll just make a plug. I think either October or November, we're having a winter sowing workshop. So if you're curious about that.
When are we?
It's either October or November. I think November. My neighbor and winter sower extraordinaire, John Bowen, will be coming again this year to talk about winter sowing.
Which is basically what you're
Yes.
talking about doing with a margin more control.
Okay.
Right? It's like you're letting winter do it, but you're doing it in a sort of pot, so then you can control where they get put after that. Yeah.
I did last winter, I winter sowed on trays.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put the dirt in the trays and
Yeah.
threw my seeds out there. And then I covered them with plastic
Yeah.
and put them in the garage.
What month,
in a
Carol?
dark corner. I think depended on the seeds. Some of them I started in January. And then some I waited a little bit of time, but I just stuck them, I sprayed them with a pump. I use a pump-up sprayer and you can make
Oh,
a
that's a
real
good
fine
idea.
mist.
Yeah.
And then stuck them in a dark, cold corner, and it was inside, so they didn't get dug up by anything, but it wasn't a heated part of my house, and I was overwhelmed by germination.
Sure.
I got way too many plants. It
We have that happen
drove
sometimes
me
too.
crazy in the spring.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes,
Our
yes.
cardinal lobelia was that last year. Somebody donated a bunch of lobelia to us, and all of it germinated. We had like 1,000 plants. We're like, oh my God,
Yeah,
we don't even have enough pots.
yeah.
Yeah.
I to pot it up.
On a personal level, whenever I wanted to experiment with native plants like a trillium or ginseng or something like that, I always do it outside in a tray because sometimes they take like 36 months to germinate. And again, I just don't have the space or time to be like, I'm gonna put you over here in controlled growing space that otherwise is utilized for something else, I'm gonna put you over here where you're kind of out of the way, and then I'm just gonna bon voyage, you know, and I'll see you in 36 months, hopefully.
It just helped me keep track of where they were, because if you just throw the seeds directly out into your garden,
Yeah, you
you
forget.
might come along and rake, or something might come along, an animal comes along and digs and stuff, and then,
And then they might get mowed up, and it's,
yeah,
you
so
get
it's a
a wonderful
little more
surprise. It's
control,
great.
but
Yeah.
not.
Right. Not so
some
much
control, not potted up. I think like we had 2 more.
Yeah, and then I think we're gonna move over to the workshop portion,
Yeah.
so Rachel can go do her day job.
Where do you find minimum and maximum stratification times for different seeds? Is there, is that in, which book is?
I would say if you're
online,
doing
too.
stranger natives, this one, these 2. General and probably a little more veggie, which is less likely, is this one. But then, of course, once you kind of like get into the resources these are gonna offer, the internet, right? Again, I feel like there are things that can give you some pretty wild misinformation. Plant people don't tend to be those people, right? I mean, let's just say, again, I'm picking some random, I've decided that Joe Pye weed is my favorite. I really want Joe Pye, which is an amazing plant, yeah, yeah.
That was her big
I-
question.
I want Joe Pye weed, right? And somebody's got a really cool mini version at their house that isn't gonna get 18 feet tall, and it's gonna get 5 feet tall, and so I want it. Well, I've never done Joe Pye weed before, so I know it's a native, so surely it has to be stratified, right? I'm gonna Google stratification success length for Joe Pye weed. And then I'm gonna get a range, and then after that, like so much other stuff horticulture related, I'm experimenting, right? I know I've got a heart of a scientist, so what I might even do that first time, if I can remember to label everything well, it's like that seed my neighbor gave me, I'm gonna split it in half, and one of them I'm gonna do 4 weeks, one of them I'm gonna do 8 weeks. Which one does better, right? And then you're narrowing in on your own little world, what worked best, right? Because all of it changes from place to place. Like what happens up in Leicester is different than what happens for me in Zirconia. We might as well be almost different growing zones. Because I live in the thermal belt, they live in the frozen pocket. Like, sure, I guess we're sort of both 8A, but not really. I mean, pretty different climates. All right, right here.
I was just gonna ask, what she said, put it in the freezer. Is that necessary, or can you just put it in the ground now?
You put it in the ground now.
Or just leave it?
Yeah, well, and certainly like, if you've got these on your own property, you're not trying to move them somewhere else, the only reason I might come over here and mess with this is to keep the birds from getting it, right? Because the goldfinches will go for these. So like if I don't want the goldfinches to get them, if I'm walking around in my own garden, what I might do is pick these heads and then like rough them up right there in the garden so that a bird doesn't eat them. At least it's on the ground, not getting eaten by a bird. But otherwise, nature's doing its thing. I don't have to do anything else other than not let them get eaten. So like if I already have them and I just want them to self-seed more, that's the only step I would take, is to minimize predation, if you will. Yeah.
I have one resource similar to what you were saying. If you go to the website, growmilkweedplants.com, and go into the little search box, germination, like mason jar, Jar, germination. Some of the greatest information,
Yeah.
based on what the good success you were having with yours. Great way to do it.
Betsy,
There's
did
a
you
lot
have-
out there.
Betsy, did you have a question about the Joe Pye weed?
I had 3 Joe Pye weeds last year, and now I have 15.
Yeah.
And they're giant.
Huge, yeah.
And I just want to know, like, you just talked about how you're learning.
Sure.
How to
So do
do
you
it.
want more or less?
Oh, I want more.
You want more?
Because I want to share.
Oh, sure, sure. So, just like anything else, they've got to get to the point that their seed is dried down enough to save, right? So if you pick them too soon, that's almost the problem. But for those teeny tiny ones, you almost have to like put a paper bag or something over them in advance because the seed's gonna drop. And then it's gone before you have a chance. I worked for a little while for the Chicago Botanic Garden, and our job was to save wild plant seeds, and we would have to do that because I'm not out there every day looking at this one variety, right? And so it's like I would wait until it had obviously been germinated, flowers are dropping off, and then I would cover it with something so that as soon as the seeds started to drop, it wouldn't blow away in the wind. Because Joe Pye weed again has teeny teeny tiny seed, right? So you can, and then when you're saving it, a lot of times what you're doing is you're cutting off the stem with the baggie still attached, flip that upside down, maybe let it dry out a little bit more, and then you kind of like shake it in the baggie, and then pull it off, and then again, after that, unless you're trying to get it to like clean seed, which why would you? You're kind of done, right? And then you hand off that baggie to a neighbor, and then they take that dust of seed and
My neighbors.
dust it, yes, out into the world.
Paper or plastic? Can you do plastic bags?
Yeah, you could do
Too
plastic
moist.
bag, too moist. That would be the biggest thing, is like, that is gonna trap humidity, right? And so, I mean, we've all seen it in a plastic baggie, right? It's like, as it heats up, all of that moisture that's still in that seed head is just like sticking to the bag and then reabsorbing, and sticking to the bag and reabsorbing. Paper bags are really the go-to for that kind of application.
Staple it around?
I generally am using whatever I have on hand, is what I would say, right? So I've used paper, rubber bands if the flower head is small enough for me to get it over, which a lot of times it isn't. Sometimes I'm using tape if I have it on me. I've definitely used the twist tie, you know, that like you can either, they have them on bread bags, but you can buy the big reels of it, you know, that you clip off. A lot of times I'm using that, whatever I can get on there that's tight enough,
Makes sense.
that's gonna seal as close as possible to the stem. And maybe even remove some of the leaves so you can get it real tight against the stem, because yeah, those seeds are tiny.
So the butterflies are all over the big ones.
Sure.
Like they're
Yeah.
they're literally moving all over the big
Yeah.
ones. And the smaller ones, they're not really on.
Like the smaller plant itself or the smaller blossoms?
The smaller blossoms.
Sure.
So should I go ahead and,
I would just ignore the little bitty tiny ones, because like any plant, certain of their seeds, they're not gonna, I mean, this fennel has already aborted this one.
right,
Nope, we're not sending time and energy into that because it's not gonna make it. We're sending time and energy here and we're sending it here.
so I should just wait and be patient?
Yeah, I would pick the biggest one, and as soon as you see the butterflies starting to ignore that one because the plant is no longer offering pollen, go ahead and cap it.
Okay.
Right? And then you've got what you're gonna get, and then just forget about these little ones that aren't gonna ripen as many seed anyway, and they'll drop more seed on your property, which is also great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it went from 3 to 15.
And they're so big.
Right.
I mean, the Joe Pyewees at my house are like this big right now. Just getting a baggie over that is bad enough. Yeah, these things are freaking massive. I love Joe Pyeweed. It's the coolest plant. So even like the main head, maybe you're not even doing the whole thing, right? Maybe you're picking like individual chunks and you're kind of sealing that part off. Whatever is functional is kind of what you're going for.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm easy to get a hold of. My email is horticulture@blueridge.edu. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have post this meeting. Yeah.